Everyone knows that LIV Golf and PGA Tour aren't best friends. The arrival of LIV created a kind of divide in the world of professional golf, and even though it's been some time, you can still feel the after effects. Right now, it's got everything to do with the world ranking system and how plenty of golfers find it unfair, especially Cameron Smith. The Australian has a lot to say, so keep watching to find out. First up, Cameron Smith opens up about the unfairness of the ranking system in golf. The whole ranking system in golf has people scratching their heads, and most of the confusion and uproar has been about how it makes zero sense the way the rankings work. Of course, a system that bears huge importance in a golfer's career needs to change if it's got this many professional players frustrated. One of those players happens to be Cameron Smith. The 29-year-old currently holds third place on the rankings list, but despite multiple brilliant victories this year, Smith's given up any hope he had to make it to number one. Now that's truly tragic. The 2022 PGA Player of the Year went on to admit that it's a bit of a shame he hasn't climbed up on the rankings list, and the unfairness of the whole situation really settles in when you realize he's had to deal with this for a whole 4 months. When you're playing so much and not just merely playing, but also winning, yet even then you don't see yourself move up on the list, that's bound to make you feel a little low. Up next, LIV Golf continues to face obstacles in its quest to gain more ranking points. So what's the catch? What's the reason behind Smith still being third on the list even after joining LIV Golf? Smith's bagged some really incredible wins this year. He managed to win splendidly at the Century Tournament of Champions and the Players' Championship. After that, we saw him win against St. Andrews in July. And after that, he celebrated being placed second on the world rankings list. Then September came, and it was announced that Smith officially joined LIV Golf. With his contract, Smith dropped back to number 3. Mostly it has to do with how LIV hosts a 54-hole, no-cut event that doesn't award official world golf ranking, OWGR points. LIV applied to obtain permission to award players playing its tournament's OWGR points, but so far, the Saudi-backed golfing agency continues to face hurdles in that quest. Let's talk about what Matt Jones has to say about all of this. The whole rankings thing has sparked a lot of controversy in the world of golf, and more players keep speaking up against the unfairness of the system. Matt Jones, the two-time winner of the Emirates Australian Open, believes there's nothing official about such a rankings list if we're not getting to see the likes of Cameron Smith and Dustin Johnson climb to the top. Both of them are some of the best golfers out there, and it's truly a huge shame if they're not being given the points that they very well deserve. In fact, Jones is of the firm opinion that if things are to become better, then they've got to accommodate LIV Golf and let them have the license to award OWGR points. What's more, even David Micheluzzi spoke up in support of Smith. From the looks of it, Smith isn't the only player who's troubled by an absence of official points for LIV Golf members. David Micheluzzi, another Australian golfer, pointed out how his own points have been halved. At the beginning of 2022, Micheluzzi went on to participate in an Australian PGA Tour, where he received 4.48 points for finishing the tournament in 9th place. In comparison, Micheluzzi recently took part in the DP World Tour, and even though there were plenty of leading players like Adam Scott and Cameron Smith participating, Micheluzzi finished in 6th place and managed to earn 2.01 points. Do you see how he got more points by finishing in 9th place? No wonder these golfers are all incredibly upset with the system right now. Now for why it's unbelievably surprising to still see Smith ranked 3rd on the official list. We know that Rory McIlroy is ranked number 1 right now, but honestly, even though he's in first place, we feel like Smith's had more of an impressive career this year. The Australians won 5 times this year, whereas McIlroy just won thrice. What's more, Smith was the one who went on to win the Open Championship and the Players' Championship. Additionally, just recently, Smith took the Australian PGA Tour trophy home. On top of that, they even announced that Smith's the Player of the Year this year. Keeping all of these highlights in mind, you can see why it's still shocking that the Australians still rank 3rd. Not to mention, here's why Smith thinks world ranking points are important. With all that's happened, Smith's pretty much accepted that there's nothing he can do to bump himself to the top of the list. Despite that, the Australian still thinks the ranking system holds great importance for players. We already know that Smith's very disappointed that big events like the PGA and the Open get such few points when we pretty much know how these points can make or break a golfer's career. Most of these participants really don't get a chance to earn points elsewhere, so these tournaments serve as an opportunity to collect as many many as they can. For young players, these points tend to mean a lot. That's why a change in the system is really needed. Coming up, Lucas Herbert's take on the entire ranking system and all the drama. There's another Australian player who's spoken up about the whole unfairness of these circumstances for Smith. This time it's Lucas Herbert. According to Herbert, Smith at least deserves to be placed number 2, and that Cam Smith is the bloke to beat this week. There's no doubt that Smith's had a pretty great season this year, and the fact that the rankings don't show it, yeah, that's a real bummer. But Herbert himself hasn't really looked at the rankings for these events because so far he's been more focused on how the golf course is a pretty amazing place to play. Herbert believes that these rankings shouldn't be treated as the be-all and end-all, as long as players are giving it their best shot. Let's take a look at Carrie Webb's biggest accomplishment this year. Well, Carrie Webb's got something really big to celebrate, and it's the fact that she managed to beat Cameron Smith. We know that Smith's one of the best players out there, and the fact that Webb managed to beat him, that's definitely something to boast about. What's more, the Australian Open this year's a mixed-gender event, and both Webb and Smith will be participating. Seeing how Webb's already won against him once, we're really looking forward to how the two will play in Melbourne. You bet we're absolutely excited about this. In fact, we believe Webb's victory over Smith has definitely given her the confidence to give it her best at the Australian Open. Moving on, how a one-on-one with Smith turned out for Carrie Webb. From what we've heard, it was Webb who had challenged Smith. The 47-year-old British Open winner went head-to-head against Cam Smith in Florida at the Pine Tree Golf Club. The whole thing happened back in June, and even though it had to be called off after 14 holes because of rain, Webb was still ahead of Smith. So technically, the 7-time major winner was the official winner. In light of that, Carrie Webb's done something that other golfers have only dreamed of so far: beat Cameron Smith. She must be feeling really good about how it all turned out for her. Following up, the two even had a little bet going on. The best thing about this one-on-one between Webb and Smith was that the two didn't play without a bet. And what could have the bet been about? Well, it was for a bottle of wine. Webb went on to talk about how she won this little challenge between them. Smith stuck to his word and brought over a bottle of Grange. But instead of drinking it then, the British Open champion asked Smith to sign the bottle, and they ended up making a deal that the bottle won't be opened until one of them wins a major tournament. 2 weeks later, Smith won an Open. Well, it's time to open that bottle. Last but not least, Webb's thoughts on the upcoming Australian Open. No doubt that after beating Smith, Carrie Webb must be really looking forward to the mixed-gender Australian Open. Webb's won 5 Australian Open tournaments before, so we've got really high expectations from her. But as it turns out, the woman herself doesn't have too many expectations of herself. The main reason being that she's not played too frequently in recent times, and what's more, there are going to be plenty of other strong opponents on the field. But Webb believes that if she ends up starting well, she might just feel inspired to go for winning. Well, let's hope it turns out that way. That's a wrap for this video. What do you think of the current ranking system in golf? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you at the next one.